2025. New year, new us.
Yeah, hopefully by new us, it means actually posting with some kind of consistency.
Yes.
It's been since September of 23.
So what have you been doing this whole time?
Well, I think both of us have been pretty busy. I think first of all, let's mention the elephant in the room, which is the room.
Yeah.
We're in a new setup.
Yes.
It's a nice place. We've been talking about having a place that we could do a good podcast for a while. So
Something that we can show up, turn on the cameras, and go.
pretty much, yeah. And that's going to help us a lot with being able to hopefully come up with consistency.
Sure.
The only other thing will be, if we can think of things to talk about. But usually we
help
get
us out.
Yeah, usually we get enough questions that it gives us ideas of what to talk about. So yeah, what have you been up to since September of 23?
Man. So I've dove really heavily in the world of documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to work on a project with a large crew has been a ton of fun. Fortunately, can't talk a ton about it, but there's opportunity for Netflix and some different things just to be able to be a part of that and organize some awesome DP work and work with a crew that I love and have learned a lot. And it's just fun when you work with people like that and professionals that know what they're doing. The director and some of the producers are some of the best I've ever seen. So that's fun. And then in ourselves, we're producing and directing our own. That has literally been it'll be a year by the time it's done. And that's been 9 months, and it's intense.
Yeah.
And
and I would say over the past year and a quarter, you've definitely dove way more into the, strict DP, roles with films and just corporate work and whatever. Like you said, can't talk a lot about it yet, but you've dove into that way more than I have. I've actually dove more into the business side of things and not shooting as much. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting back into more of the DP work and doing more filming and producing.
I think it comes and goes. I mean, if you don't do one, you don't have the other.
It's true.
So,
yeah.
So.
And I think that, what we're going to talk about today is kind of what we would do different if we were starting over again. But we kind of wanted to lay some groundwork of where we've been, what we've been doing. And I think that it comes into a lot of what we would do different is just the way that we approach the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been, I became a part of another company, and I've been doing a lot of the marketing and the business development on that company. It's kind of starting to get to the point where I can do a little bit more film, and it's going to be a nice break. It's funny. You don't realize how much you enjoy something until you don't do it anymore.
Yeah. And how quick it's easy to not forget those things, but just getting back into it. It's not just always like riding a bike,
Not at all. I don't know how many times in the past 3 months I've been like, Matt, help me.
It's just different. Like you spend a ton of time in it, you get your rhythm, you get your groove, you just go. When you have to build that rhythm again, it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, some of our gear doesn't even work because of operating systems.
Well, let's not talk about that. I haven't done an update in so long. It tells you how much I've been using it. Even today on this wide shot, Matt, I can't find out how to format this camera. I haven't ran this camera in a year.
FX3 stuff.
Yeah, it's such a hard camera. I can run this better than I can run an FX3.
Yeah, for real. Well,
that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, any film set that I've been doing where we've been working together has been with the Red.
Yeah.
I've done some stuff on my own, but I don't use the FX3 for my own stuff. Yeah. I either use the FX6 or like an A7S. But
that's fun. Like we get to work on our stuff separately, but when we come together, it's usually, more entailed projects anyway. So it's just fun. So.
And that's the thing I think is a lot of fun about being able to work on projects with you rather than projects by myself is one, I mean, we still talk almost every day, but we haven't been working together as much as we had been. And obviously we still own and operate the company together and stuff. So it's not like anything's really changed. We just aren't around each other as much on a film set, right? Yeah. But it's interesting as you've been working, and especially as you've been working with these crews that you're not used to working with, you're bringing in new tricks and new ways of shooting. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. So it's like pushing us.
Well, it's the most exciting thing about working with people is learning. Like, I don't care if a good experience, bad experience, an ugly experience, you're learning something.
You're learning.
We've worked with directors that are a nightmare, you've worked with ones that are amazing,
Mhm.
and everyone in between, and same thing with producers, and, I've been working there's a one guy we've been working with, and I've never seen anything like it. Like, "Oh, we need an extra day to shoot." Next thing you know, everything's rerouted, and gears re-rented, we have new flights, and it's like, "What just happened?" There's 27 minutes just went by, and everything's taken care of, and guess what? Food's on the door already knocking,
Right.
and they just take care of you, and
It
you're
was
like it
amazing.
makes you wanna be better
Right.
in everything, every aspect, being more, yeah, just put together, and so I
Mhm.
think that is exciting, but then each person, every DP I've ever worked with, you learn something. Like, I don't care, a DIT, you're learning stuff, different
Mhm.
processes, different things,
Yeah.
what sticks and what doesn't, why you do something, and so I think that's the excitement about our job is it's never ending
Right. Well, and
learning.
it's interesting. I kind of joke a lot. If there's, we've both been training some people,
Yeah,
and we've been training them separately,
yeah,
different people separately, but we all know each other, right? And so I laugh a lot because a lot of times, if you and I produce something and it's by ourselves, the end result's going to look almost identical. Most people couldn't tell the difference.
yeah,
Um, but even you and me having learned a lot of this stuff together, our workflows are different,
yeah,
right?
very
And I
much, yeah,
I laugh and I'm like, hey, Matt wouldn't do it this way. I do it this way. This is why. Is Matt's wrong? Is mine right? It's just how we do
yeah.
it. And so working with, like you said, even a DIT, like you learn those workflows, and maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't,
Yeah. Well,
right?
and sometimes you try, yeah, what, and then what sticks? I think
Hmm.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
And then it becomes part of your regiment. And next thing you know, your building process, you're getting
makes you
better.
more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would say probably the biggest. You kind of already have alluded to a little bit, but the biggest thing I've learned this year is that if you don't do something, it's not like riding a bike.
Yeah.
You will absolutely forget, or not forget maybe, but like it's just not as. I'm thinking about it with color grading, right? Used to be a year ago, if I sat down to color grade a project, my hands just did the work and my eyes weren't moving and it's just done. Now I'm like, how do I
Yeah.
do I need to
And
get this
and
look
and
and
it,
it just takes
it's no
longer.
joke. I mean, you go from one program to one upgrade. The things they moved, the things they do differently, how you do it, and how you build again. Just the process of how to go about something is
Mhm.
constantly changing. And I've always said this, and in this field, is if you are learning all the time, and you
Mhm.
can, I mean, there's some things that you hold on for a lifetime,
Yeah.
but there's also things like if you don't keep up with, it's easy to get behind real quick, and
Even if
that's
it's not
hard.
you necessarily getting behind, but just the technology and the
Yeah,
software changing, like lighting, I haven't lost it.
yeah,
I know how to light
yeah.
just as like I used to, but the editing workflow is a lot harder. It takes me a lot longer now, and it's simply because I haven't been doing it.
Well,
And I feel
editing's
like
your favorite thing, so
I hate editing. I maybe I shouldn't be so open about that, but man, I don't like it. But
yeah,
and I feel like I'll watch you color grade. You and I both have our differences on the editing workflow,
yeah,
like actually cutting. And I feel like, man, there are some things you do that I'm like, dude, Matt, this is taking 17 years. And then there's other things that I do that you're like, dude, there's a faster way to do this.
yeah,
And it's just that you have your things,
yeah.
right? But color grading, especially, even before, I feel like you were faster. And part of it's because my OCD. Like I have to line up all the things and
Redo your node tree 150 times.
yeah, I have to readjust my node tree that's already been adjusted. I have to just fix it because there's a little line that's off. But it's interesting watching the way, especially when like we got the panels and
Mhm.
you just the way that the workflow is just fast. And you once you do it every day for a month, I mean, it's crazy how efficient you can get.
Yeah. I love part of the thing I love about color grading is the DP of me in me.
Hmm.
That's like you're subtracting building light, making things pop, doing the things that you would do in lighting. And sometimes you don't always have the biggest budget or the time
Hmm.
to light a scene. And so like, those are the things I love to do to relax and to be able to stay up. Like to
Hmm.
me, if I'm not doing that, I'm like, I'm missing something, right? But there's also I mean, there's so much to. I feel that way all the time in editing because the more you and I've been getting busy, we have editors, and
Mhm.
so you do that, and we love the finishing work side of things just because it's
Yeah.
fun.
If I never rough cut an edit at all again, I like life goal, man. Don't ever have to rough cut again.
Hey, every once in a while, I'm like, okay, this is fun. It's
I'm not.
it's few and far between
Yeah.
anymore.
On a rough cut?
Yeah.
No, no. Like
Yeah.
maybe,
It's fun to get in and see the footage that you shot and spent so much time, and like that's the part I love to do.
yeah.
Not having to take, taking things, and the rough cut is tough, but I love getting to see what we produce, and so that's part
Yeah.
of it.
I think an
But
interesting thing to me, and even our editors, like I would say, I mean, our editor, like we're training our editors, right?
mhm,
But it's really interesting, even having the way that the footage that, like, if I'm shooting this footage, I have a project that one of our editors did, I shot a year ago, and we finally started work on the edit. And when I was shooting it, I kind of had the edit in my head, right? And because I was a running gun, so it's you're editing as you film,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
And so I'm putting it together, and I hadn't seen any of that footage for a year, and then I was like, "Hey, you need to edit this," and he edited it, and the way that he edited it, because it wasn't me editing it, I was like, "This is awesome! Like you did a really good job," and it was basic cuts and
yeah,
whatever, but it's interesting seeing how different people interpret
yeah.
footage. We were talking
It's
to
interesting to
Caleb.
see the parts they take,
Mhm.
all of those things. You're like, "That's not what I would have done," but it's not bad, it's just different,
It's different.
like
Song
and so that's
choices.
cool. But it's the same thing about that it goes back to working with different crews and things, like,
Mhm.
you might not think of something or do something the same way, but you're just constantly kinda getting ideas, and that's the fun about being creative is,
Mhm.
it's always a process, it's never ending.
So I have a question. You've been working a lot more on dock work. You've been working a lot more on corporate talking heads
Mm.
with bigger crews. In the past year, what are your biggest takeaways that you've picked up working with these crews?
Um I wish I would have done it a lot sooner. You know what I mean? Like, because
Mhm.
I feel like it intrigues you all the time to learn, to be better, to contribute. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if there's anything I've learned is I actually have something to contribute.
Mhm.
I can tell you, I don't care if you're watching this, we all doubt ourselves at times. You
Mhm.
don't feel creative. You're going through just a bum spell. And then you work with somebody and they're like, man, we love how you do this. I love how you storytell. Love how you brought that to life.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you're like, man, thanks. When you're doing it for yourself all the time, you are constantly questioning and doubting and wondering and it's
Yeah.
just better to
Well, and you
collaborate
see
to do
your
those.
style,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
And like, so your style to you is old hat,
mhm.
right? But other people who don't see it all the time, they're like, man, how did you think of that? And you're
Yeah.
like, what do
I
you mean?
get that asked a lot. Like, "Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I would have never." In that documentary that we are shooting, I mean, 5 different DPs in this one person's office over a period of time,
Mhm.
and they were like, "You are the only one who ever thought of this, and we love the dynamic look that you did. This
Mhm.
is not a fun office to light," and I had a blast, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think that's what's exciting about it, and you
Mhm.
get to learn that, and then what's awesome is it builds confidence in them working together, and you kinda learn what you're good at, and, I worked with one guy who's just an incredible storyteller through wide angle,
Mhm.
and I'm not at all.
We love
I
compression.
learned so much on that
Yeah.
one day. We shot 13 hours because of the significance of this day. And I learned so much and I had a blast. And I've used some of those things that I've learned by a person that I watch just execute very well.
Well, I think you learned things that I would say like you leveled up.
Yeah.
And I also think that there were some things that you were like, we do good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
not, you called me that day and
We're
you
not
were,
as bad as we think we are.
I mean, like you were like, man, I learned you first thing you told me, it wasn't like, man, we're killing it. It was, I loved watching him work with a super wide lens. What was it, a 16-35 or
Yeah.
something? Loved watching him work with a 16-35 because you neither one of us have that lens because we hate that lens.
I
Just
have
because
the
we don't like
prime versions of everything in between.
right, and we don't like working with wides. Like you and
Mm,
I are going to typically go no less than a 35,
mhm.
typically. unless a shot calls for something. We're not going to throw a 24 on and just go run around. Like that's just not how you were like I like to shoot. But you were like, I watched him do so many things that I wouldn't have done. Not that you wouldn't have thought of it, you just wouldn't do it. And maybe I really believe there's a few people that I work with and they're really good with a wide angle lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't see those shots.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know if it's just the way that we view life or whatever, but I don't see good wide angle shots. I just, in my brain, I can't visualize it. And so I struggle with a wide angle lens.
I mean, I love wide angle, but I'm also like, there's a time and a place for it so much that I'm like, okay, this is, when I'm shot listing or whatever, I'm like this. But to just take that lens and just run, I'm like, that wouldn't have been my choice, right? And what was fun is to be able to go, we're covering a very important event, and knowing like he's getting this storytelling, knowing what he's doing, seeing how he's doing that, and then implementing the pickoffs of emotion and doing those things. Like that's what's fun about working. And what was crazy is it's two DPs coming together because you're both working on these major projects, and then they're like, hey, we need both of you at this event. And so what's cool is they trust us to just go. The director's over here, he's running, Teradek and seeing them, and in ear going, guys, this is insane. This is so good. Oh my gosh, Hefe, if you would have saw what Matt got or whatever, vice versa. And it's like, dude, that's, and all of a sudden you get excited. Yeah. Like you're like, come back. And then, but I'm also going, like we worked on a huge, shoot 5-day long sane crew with, DPs out of, they're out of Hollywood doing these things, and it's a little intimidating. And then all of a sudden you walk on set and it's like, oh, like you can hang and run with these guys all day long. And in some ways be like, I think, there's a lot to, having confidence that you can walk into a place, and that's what some of these opportunities build. And so I think I took a lot of that away this year, but also at the same time, I dreamt again, man. What I mean by that is like what projects are happening, what the things that I'm excited, what I love to do. And let's make sure I have time in my schedule to do those things, because if not, there's a massive part of the creative process that I'm missing. So
I feel like since you shot those, like we've done some, I would say, intro to documentary work before, but the project we're working on that we've been working on for about a year, since you shot with those crews, you're directing this documentary we're working on, right? And I feel like when you worked on that crew with them, you came into our documentary with a whole new outlook on how it could be shot. And like your plan for execution, everything was like the strategy was leveled up.
Well, and I think part of it is you don't know what you don't know, right? And good education is huge. You and I spend a ton of time constantly continuing education. At the same time, there's nothing like real experience. There's nothing like working with different people and why and how and the processes they shoot, and going, okay, like that again, it's just another aspect of the full garment that we get to put on and learn. And if you're, when I was young and dumb, like there's truth to that.
Like
you
what?
think you know
September
everything.
23 or
yeah. There's truth to just thinking you know everything, and then you're so arrogant enough that you never actually took the time to do that. And so again, to take away from this year, I'm like, man, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know a lot. There's a lot more room for something to stick,
for somebody to teach you something.
I'm like, I don't know anything, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. And the best part is because of that, I really do feel like I'm getting better. Now, I'm also recognizing other people who are talented in ways that I'm not, and going, I'm not just going to try to be better at what I'm doing. I'm going to partner with these awesome people and do this thing together, right? Like that's a huge, huge thing.
Well, I think that's actually a really good segue into what this podcast is actually for.
Hey, guess what? Our intro's finally done.
So that's what we've been up to. The point of this podcast, I did a questionnaire of like, hey, what would you like us to talk about? It's been a year since we've done this. We're going to fire it up again.
One of the big reasons we're doing this is people are reaching out going, hey, when are you going to do this again? And it's like, again, you apologize, but you're also like, yeah, I'm glad people do actually take value in it.
Well, I think part of it why we've been busy. Things have been changing. Me personally, I've been doing work. The work I've been doing on the film set, on the film side, has been commercials.
Yeah.
I've been filming pretty much everything I've done is either retainer work to make sure that we have money coming in, or um, getting hired out as a DP for commercials. Like
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing. And um,
Yeah, well, somehow we talked about me the whole time. What the heck?
your work's more fun. And I think that's something that everybody sees too, is like, oh, what you're doing is so cool.
Grass is
What I'm
always greener
doing,
on the other
yeah,
side.
what I'm doing is boring. I mean, and they're cool commercials, but I guess it's
Yeah, I
something
know
that
what you
we've
mean.
done for so long. I kind of just kept on the trajectory we're on, and you've been like going into the dock side, but not dark side, dock side. Um, I did that question. Courtney,
Super cheesy. Sorry.
dad joke. I'm a dad, if you haven't noticed. Um, I did this, tell us what you want us to talk about or whatever. And one of the ones that I got I thought was great was, if you could start over and do it again, how would you do things differently?
Yeah.
And I think that hit me pretty hard when I saw it because, man, like you said, we're always learning. We try to be self-aware, like, where have I failed? Where could I have done better? Maybe not failed, but where could I have done better or whatever? And you don't know what you don't know. And so what would you have done better? And you mentioned uh, having people around you that add value where you don't have it, right?
Mm,
I think one of our company's biggest weaknesses has been that you and I both have the same strengths,
yeah.
right? Like we have different ways of
Doing
approaching
things. Yeah.
the same thing, but we both do the same thing, right? And I think the biggest thing that I would do different if we were starting this all over is that, we would have the year or whatever of getting work, but we would have brought people in a lot faster and
Yeah.
had editors and had, things that
Well, I look back and I'm like, why did we do that? Again, it's you don't know what you don't know. You're learning each other, how strengths, weaknesses, vice versa. But then, and maybe I'm speaking from my own self, but there is a little bit of an arrogance, like, no, we can do it all, and that arrogance holds you back. And
extremely.
that's hard to look at, and look in the mirror. If you're asking that question, what would you do different? It's like, humble myself, like truth.
Well,
And I'm
and
not
both of
saying,
us,
I wouldn't say that like I'm crazy, cocky, arrogant, but I'm also going like I do have pride, like I can do it, right? Like I don't want to
because
show my weakness
yeah,
or
we
whatever.
could figure it out,
Yeah,
right?
And
And we
I take
did.
pride in that.
We did for the past 7 years. Like we
Fake it
have
till you
figured it
make
out.
it.
Not
Yeah, I
even
know
fake
what
it,
you
but
mean.
like, hey Matt, there was a project. We need you guys to do some graphic design work for it. Neither one of us are graphic designers,
Yeah,
right? Can we do it? Yeah. I've been doing it for the past year. You've done it for the past 20.
yeah,
Does that mean that's like your strength?
yeah.
No. Do you have crazy interest in it? But we can figure it out. And I think a lot of it was like,
We need a really cool new logo if anybody's out there wants to kill
we're
it.
not
So.
very good graphic designers.
We're not good graphic designers.
um, I think a lot of it was just, we can figure it out. So let's figure it out, because rather than trying to build that as a part of um, our company, it was, we have a job, right? And so I think if you're gonna really advance and build a company, and I don't know if this is what the question was about, was how to build a company, but you need to have people who have different strengths,
I think there's a personal level, there's a professional
right?
level, and there's so many things you learn along the process. So I
Mhm.
love the question, to be honest with you,
I do
because
too.
I think we should always be asking ourselves that, and then it helps us reach goals and put new goals on the map. And
Well, if you don't look back to see what I don't want to say mistakes or what you could have done differently, you're going to do the same thing moving
when
forward.
you are and I are probably extra critical of ourselves,
Mhm.
like we'll rip something apart. Like I don't know if I've ever put out something ever that I'm like, that was perfect.
Oh no,
I'm ready to change something by the
I don't
time.
think I'd ever give anything a B.
Yeah, like it's true. It's like
Like
that.
that's 70% at best.
Yeah, and so, and again, we're critical of ourselves, and I in some ways I like to look back and go, how did I miss that mark? But the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, and I think that was a big part of,
Mhm.
like, yeah, as at a young age, be willing to serve. Don't think you need to make millions of dollars and you need to charge clients tons of money because everybody else around you doing it and people say your videos are good. No, like come in humbly, work with the
Mhm.
best, learn from the best, and then from that place, work yourself into a you know productive and impactful, and build your own identity in a sense of that,
Mhm.
and you're more people want to work with you.
Well,
So
there are a lot of people on film sets who can make a cool video and they're being hired in as a PA,
yeah. Oh
right?
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
because you can say from arrogance since if you have to earn your stripes, right? But also, if you want to level up, you've got to get in that door.
Yeah.
And if you want to work with the best and you're not the best or around there, that's how you get in the door. And guess what? As you do that, you're gonna see how things are done. How much have we learned just being on a set,
Hmm.
right? Like we're not always hired as DPs.
Yeah.
I've been hired as an AC a lot,
Yeah.
right? And um, I think that as you're in those crews, you see things that you like and things you don't like.
Hmm.
And not that they're wrong, it just doesn't fit your workflow, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that one of my biggest takeaways in the past year and a half or whatever it's been, that I've learned has been you have to have a team and you can't do it by yourself. All you're going to do is burn yourself out. You're going to thinking you can do everything. I think it's kind of I don't want to say if you, the newer you are in the space or at doing anything, you think I'll just learn it,
Hmm.
right? And is it valuing your time? I don't know what causes it, but thinking you can learn it is going to hold you back every time. When there's somebody who can already do it, partner with them, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to like be a business partner with them, but partner with them and learn. Because if their strength is graphic design and yours is video or photography, I bet you they can learn from you too, or you guys can work together and make something really good. You
Yeah.
know, um,
I think, yeah. And I think that goes down to like in all of the things you learn and you look back, I think I could literally we could make a 10-hour podcast today with this. And I'm not kidding.
yeah,
But like confidence is important. Taking risks is important because you walk onto a set not confident, your client's not going to have. So there is a part of you that you need to constantly be learning and doing those things. But there's a difference of humble confidence and arrogant confidence, right?
hmm
And I think that's one thing we've done well, and that sounds arrogant in itself, but in some ways it's opened the door for bigger opportunities because I don't know about you, but when you walk onto a huge set, it's almost like
I remember the first one I walked on. I walked.
in some ways
There
it's
was
like a
not a
little
bunch of confidence in my.
pissing contest, right?
I mean, really, yeah.
Like I don't mean that,
What have you done? Oh, what I've worked on this show. Oh,
yeah, and
I've.
it's almost like, oh, let's fill each other out.
Mhm.
Then at the end of the day, you realize you're both idiots all the time, and you're joking around, and next thing you know, you're best buds, and you're
Flying a
connecting
drone
for
into a
life.
tree.
Yeah, right. And so, like,
Uh,
truly, like that's at the end of the day, you put your guard down, and all of a sudden, it's like super fun,
mhm.
and you get to know the person, you get to know like all those things. And I mean this is not to get weird and sentimental, but it went from neither one of us would think that be sitting in this chair today with how we met and where we're at. It wasn't like we were at
Not
this
at all.
amazing time shoot, look at where we're at in life. It was literally like a Craigslist meeting,
Mhm.
and
Buying stuff.
yeah, question. Yeah, imagine that. And questions. And next thing you
And we both
know,
thought the other one was an idiot.
I'm not, no joke.
Like
Like,
for real.
and that being said, is going, I truly sit across from one of my best friends
Right.
today. I
100%.
mean, and I mean
And
that.
7 years
Like,
ago,
yeah,
when I'm like, hey, are you dumb? I want to make sure you're not simple,
yeah,
and you're like, hey, idiot. That's what I put down. Like,
yeah,
I think I know what to talk.
yeah.
And then, we both show up to this Craigslist carrying guns and whatever else. And I see,
That's true.
I see your son jumping around in the back of the truck. I'm like, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
And that turned into, hey, you want to come help me with this shoot? Hey, you want to come help me with this shoot? Hey, let's go outside and just shoot for fun. And then I remember you, like, I think you had told me that you've had a lot of people that were wanting to start businesses with you. And so but you're like, I don't want to start a business with just anybody. And so you started asking questions about what I wanted in a business. And it was like, we want the same
Like a
things.
4-month interview.
It was pretty much like a 4-month process of,
Yeah.
and then it's like, hey, why don't we work on some fun stuff and just see how it works out?
Yeah.
And then 7 years later, here we are, right?
Yeah.
And you look back and it's crazy how the past 7 years have happened, because it's literally been, I mean, obviously, I think we're both very strong about our faith. Like, if you look back, you can see all these little things that have happened over the past 7 years that, like, I shouldn't have been given this opportunity.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here. How in the world am I able to do this with this guy?
Yeah.
Like, you talk about like having confidence. I'm told I'm arrogant all the time, right? But I think I also tell people, I joke to people, I'm like, don't ever tell Matt this, but he's better than me, right? And the fact that I'm able to do things with somebody who have on the, I mean, film side, and you know the way you live your life and everything too, but on film side especially, like I have great respect
Yeah.
for what you know on a set, how you can handle a camera. You're like, it's funny, we say you're the creative one and I'm the technical one, but oh my gosh, hey Aaron, 7:30 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, whatever. Look at this. Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Hey, I was looking into this, and you're like, you're extremely technical too.
Yeah.
It's funny, people who have worked with you on a set.
I've learned though, like that word technical, I think I'm going, you're precise, you're
Mhm.
precision, detailed,
Mhm.
and all of those things, and they're just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, on a set we accentuate each other very well.
yeah.
Like, but it's
I mean,
just
if anything, we're entertaining.
to ourselves.
Either way,
Most people think, who are these idiots? Why are we paying them?
people are probably thinking that right now.
Well, I mean, it's a joke we tell a lot. We were on a set, and there's this company that we work for. We've worked for them for years, and every time we're at location, Aaron, you're an idiot comes out.
Yeah.
So a few times
Usually
back,
not by me.
no, usually it's by me, to be honest. But we were headed there a few times, probably 6 months to a year ago, probably a year ago. We were headed there for a shoot, and I'm like, I wonder how long it's going to be until someone says I'm an idiot this time. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
It was about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I spilled my energy drink all over the place, and you know,
I looked
we
over
think
and
it.
I just said, not long.
But I mean, I think it's important that we don't take each other or ourselves too serious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess this kind of got on a tangent, but the biggest thing is, if I had tried doing this whole thing by myself, I wouldn't be anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. If you were trying to do this on yourself still, you'd probably still be doing a lot of weddings and portraits.
Yeah.
Right. And I would be, no better than I was 7 years ago. Right. But we push each other. It's that, even though we have a lot of the same strengths, we approach it different directions.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes you don't know how to get out of the realm you're in. Like I did those things to pay for and buy new gear to get to the things that I really love to do. And we all do that. And I think that's okay. Like if there's anything I want to go back and real quick and say, the thing we did well is grind. The thing we did well is work hard. There were times that it was just hard. And that I'm talking about, I go back 17 years of going, all the things that I learned and stuff, and going, man, it was horrible to get to those places that I felt like, okay, now I'm doing a little bit better. And then, and then all of a sudden it's like you start collaborating with somebody and you realize real quick, there are ways to other doors for open, but also how to open those doors is always easier with a team. And so, the saying, not to beat a dead horse, like, yeah, collaborate, teamwork, be willing to understand that you're not the best at everything and put yourself out there. You'll find real quick that it's a better experience. And I wish we would have done that in a grander way early. Like I think back of all the teams we've worked with, like, oh my gosh, how many times have we said, how did we get here? And I'm going, man, from world record this and to flying around and all the traveling we've done and to the places it's brought us, like, how did we get here? Like, that's incredible. But it happens even in a faster, grander way.
I think that you talked about us grinding. I think a lot of that comes down to, and to kind of caveat off what you were saying, we have confidence when we're shooting. If somebody wants, like, we know that we know what we're doing, right? But we also have enough humility to be able to learn.
Yeah.
And we have enough humility to say, how can I do this better? I know we've talked to a lot of clients, like, what could I do? What could we have done better to make this for you? And then we take what they say and we build on it, right? I think that having self-awareness to know where you're good, to know where you can learn, I think that that's important. And like you said, having the willingness to just work, right?
Yeah.
And
Work ethic.
it's not I don't have to make $10,000 a day today,
Hmm.
right? If I work hard, I can then be worth that money per day,
Yeah.
or I can be, you can have the opportunities to do that because,
And I feel like we've done a good job with the people we're trying to train up to
Mhm,
let them know that. Like, listen, please don't try to all of a sudden, you're worth this kind of money. Like
mhm,
your experience of 15 years is worth money. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Not your gear that you carry on a set. Like, yes, it is,
Right.
but it's not. I honestly like you learn real quick the value of somebody who's done this a long time and has
Mhm.
been in it, and they've worked with hundreds and hundreds of crew.
Well, and I mean, to say, like, there have been times that I've been hired and if when we've been hired separately, I can only speak to what I know, but there's been times I've been hired for a job literally because they're confident that if I'm there, it'll be okay. I'm not touching a camera. I'm not touching a light. I mean, that's what a DP is,
Yeah,
right? You're there so that the client, the crew you're working with, they can be confident that when I hit record, this is going to turn out good,
yeah. Well, and a
right?
DP on a job of two, and a DP or a crew of two, and a DP of a crew of 15 is a completely different role.
Absolutely.
And you are not going to know that on day one. You're
Mm-mm.
not going to even going through film school and training and all of the things, you will learn more in experience than you ever will in those schools. I'm telling
Mhm.
you now.
Well, we've had people that did go to film school
Yeah.
and they come to work with us, and a lot of them are like, "How did you learn this?" I mean, time,
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I'm not saying that film school is
Yeah.
not good. I don't know. I didn't I didn't go to film school, so I can't
Yeah.
tell you if it's worth it or not. But experience is the ultimate teacher, right?
Yeah. And I
So,
took a lot of photography classes and lighting classes and doing all of that, right?
mhm,
And I will tell you right now, every place you walk into is a different challenge, a different. Yes, there's concepts, but nothing like
mhm,
troubleshooting, building, perfecting
right.
and learning. Work
Mhm,
with good gaffers who know their gear and know their stuff. Oh man, I'll tell you right now, they're worth their weight in gold.
mhm,
Again, you don't learn that until you
right.
start working on those.
Well, and I think a lot of the people that, not everybody, but there's a good number of people who would watch this. They're not there yet. Like, and that's not a slight. They just haven't got to the place where they're working on film crews or anything
Yeah.
like that. They're very much a one man band, right? Or two guys
Yeah, we
trying to
did that
hustle,
for a long time.
right? And so I think maybe geared maybe toward one of them is like, I don't know, what would you change from that aspect of, like, not the guy who is a DP today or an AC
Yeah,
today, but the guy who's trying to, the guys we're training. Like,
yeah,
how
that's
what would you
good.
say to them?
That's good. And I can speak from experience in this,
Mhm.
truly,
Same, so can I.
because my son,
Mm,
he's going through a lot of this, and yes, he could come in dad's office and take a whole bunch of gear, but I wanted to see ownership, and
mhm.
I would say that to anybody, like, take ownership. I'm not saying go in debt and go buy a whole bunch of gear, but willing to sacrifice to get to a place to take it serious enough to be able to invest in yourself. Because once
Mhm.
you do, there's a difference between renter mentality and owner mentality. When you
100%.
own that gear, when you begin to take pride in everything that you do, all of a sudden you springboard quite a bit. And so when you invest in yourself, whether that's training or even gear, like we say this all the time here, like gear matters, but it's not the thing.
Nope.
Like, and so again, my son moved to a new state, and he's going through.
Thank God not forever.
yeah, man, he's an awesome asset, super creative and or super really just put together. I'm
Well-rounded.
thankful
Yeah.
for him. But anyway, he moved to another state and he's the analytical mind. And so he's like, I need income. And so he's just going to go jump into the first job that he can get. So he's getting income. He's disciplined. He's wants to take care of business. And I love that about him.
Mhm.
But as a dad, I actually said, can you do me a favor? Don't just go get into something and miss every opportunity. You move to the state for a short period of time to experience all that it has. You go get a retail job that owns your
Schedule,
time and
yeah.
everything else. Like go hit the ground for 2 weeks and just go after it. And in 10 days, I call him back and he has thousands and thousands of dollars in contracts. And all of a sudden he can taste freedom and he can feel the reward of that. Like I want to be champions for these young ones coming
Right.
into this. And so like I think that's a big part of that is like be willing to take risks and be willing to sacrifice for the goal that you see 3 years down the road. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to happen a month from now or 2 months from now. Now those are milestones to get to that goal, but I think that's a big part of that. And so I would say invest in yourself. And
I think
that
one
looks different for different people.
Yeah, and I think it looks different for, so Caleb, he it's interesting. So he's here right now for vacation, right?
Mhm,
Um, and he's coming back in May.
mhm,
May. It's interesting when he was working with us before he left to go out of state. He worked for us. He learned a lot. He did all these things, but it was very much, I would say, like freelance
yeah,
employee mentality.
yeah,
Nothing against him, but that's where I think it was because he knew short term he was going to be going out of the state for a while. But it's interesting because talking to him today, he's like he has visions for where he wants to take what we're doing, right?
yeah,
That are on his own. We haven't told him we wanted to do these things. We've wanted to. We don't have the skill
yeah,
set. But in talking to him today, he was very much, I want to like this is my 3, 5, 10 year goal for the company.
and
And
all of a
he's
sudden you're like,
taking
"Oh."
ultimate ownership.
Mhm.
And I think it is because of when he went out of state and he was having to hustle up his own work. He's like, oh,
When
we
you
can do this.
when you have that word hustle, like it's almost a lost cause anymore.
Mhm.
Of going to somebody wants to be instant successful, and it just doesn't. Yes, you might have a break from time to time, but it's not actually building character. It's not building. And watching Caleb, like I'm telling you, the creative vision he had for the month of December of selling new products
Mm.
was mind blowing to me as a guy who's done this for years, pitching
Forever.
ideas.
Yeah.
And
And you're like, you
and
are,
he's
if you and I are pitching a
yeah,
job or for a job, you're the idea guy.
yeah.
I'm the, okay, this is the idea. How do we execute? You're the idea guy. So hearing that from you is,
It was crazy. It was, I mean, literally, like, how can we take this collaboration with this business, partner it in a success, and I'll be the middle guy that brings everything together in ways that were so not normal. Like,
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, that sounds like, a normal pitch, but I mean, for example, he's literally like, let's go find the most successful social media influencer in this thing, find the greatest, um, business, hotel, tourist thing, partner with this, collaborate. And in the meantime, this is what this person gets. This is what this person gets. This is
Yeah.
how I'll do it. Next thing you know, he has 10 of these things lined up and you're like, whoa, like where did that come from? And that
Yeah.
amount of sense. Like I would let's just go pitch this business over here or whatever,
Let them figure
like
the rest out.
yeah,
Yeah. He
let
wanted to do the whole
and
thing.
and there's just this awesome, and again, there was actually more to that project of this, but I'm going like these are things that owners do, right?
Mhm.
It's not a renter's mentality of like, hey, can I get my paycheck? It's
Mhm.
actually going, look, this is what the future can do. This is what, and so it's exciting to even learn from, you and I said this a couple times. Some of these editors we're working on were like, that's not what we would have done.
Mhm.
But dang, that was cool.
I like
That's
it.
like they used inspiration from something else they saw in the, a TikTok reel that I'm not usually, invested in. And all of a sudden
Mhm.
they're like, how can I take this into more of a professional realm
Right.
and actually execute it well? And all of
But
a
this
sudden
where it's not just a,
both the guys we've trained up have done that now. And we're like
Mhm. All right.
pretty legit.
Yeah.
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 So
And they're doing it. And one thing I think I've noticed, and this isn't like a Praise Caleb festival, but other thing I've noticed is I think that Or I guess one thing that I would say, anybody who is in that startup phase or starting to figure it out, approach approach it like you're an owner.
Mm,
And now, granted, nobody's going to work as hard as an owner is going to work for a company, right? Like nobody's going to work as hard for this company as you and I are because it's
yeah,
our company, right? An employee is not going to. But approach it with that in mind of how can I add value more than just I'm here to hit record or I'm here to make cuts and edit or whatever. Like
yeah,
as an owner, as somebody who we do hire people to do things, and we like I've been working on the business side for the past year and a half of you know operating and whatever else. That's appreciated,
yeah.
right? That's going to give you more opportunity than, oh, he hits record and he's getting
Oh,
good at hitting a
thunder.
record. I had a little bit of a oopsie that one of the cameras died. Um, but I think that really, I don't know where it died. So we're going to pick up. We were talking about having extreme ownership over just being an employee mindset, right? Um, and we've talked about it a lot. I think we're done talking about it, but that's, where we were at. I think we've been doing this we've been talking for a while. First podcast back, we're probably a little bit wordy. But let's
The
kind of,
joy of editing, the thing you love to do, that rough cut.
I know, right? Let's sum this all up as kind of what we've learned, how that affects what we would do differently, or how that affects how we're going to move. Really, what matters, right? Like, what would you do differently? The question is, how would you do moving forward, right? So, what would you take what you've learned over the past few years, last year, and how does that affect moving forward, professionally and personally?
Sorry, I'm thinking for a minute what that really looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going back to when I first got into photography in high school,
Okay.
all the way to film. First of all, as a DP,
Mhm.
I mean, take it serious, learn lighting, right? Like
Yeah.
every aspect of that. I know that seems like a given, but how many people we work with who are literally still running gunners calling themselves, and you're like, this is crazy.
Hmm.
And they think we're geniuses. And we're like, you guys have no idea, right?
Right.
And so like learn lighting techniques, learn the things that are, composition, all your basics,
I think you just really, really nail down the fundamentals.
fundamentals.
It's amazing how much of what we do on a day-to-day basis that people think we're geniuses about. It's really just fundamentals.
I know people who know more about a camera setting and specs and wanting to buy new gear and literally don't know.
White balance.
Yeah, like just this basic fundamental of why and how and yeah, anyway, so I think that would be a huge key to that. Obviously, the teamwork that we've constantly gone over to this time. And then, yeah, invest in yourself, believe in yourself.
Mhm.
Those are kind of cheesy token words, but there is something to go. And when you do that, you begin to see opportunities open. And it's not because by chance, it's because
Right.
you're starting to see value in yourself. So you're actually working and pushing towards those goals. And then lastly, I would say, yeah, when time and ability happens, when I say invest in yourself, gear. I want to get away from the idea that this whole thing like gear doesn't matter. I hate
It
that.
absolutely matters.
I mean, it really does. Please, if that's the last thing on the list. If there
Yeah,
is
gear
one,
doesn't make you,
yeah,
right?
but
But gear, and I think it's important to, as a caveat to getting that gear, get the gear that's appropriate for you at the time.
yeah. Well, I'm truly,
Mhm.
if somebody would have given me this camera, let's just say before it was actually created, but let's just say a caliber of this camera 15 years ago, it would have been a waste of money. It would have been a waste of everybody's time. It would have been a waste of, and honestly, I don't know what I would have done with it anyway.
You would have,
To
yeah.
now of going, I can honestly say we are putting this thing to work and putting it in we're actually using it to the full capability, where I know a lot of
Mhm.
people who still don't even know what theirs does.
That have them,
That
that own them and run them. And I think we need to get away from the idea that I have this camera so I can charge more, where you can really be effective, and that will like you had said, think long term, don't think short term. Where you can really be effective is when you understand and then you get the gear, because then you're worth the investment that companies are putting into you, right? And at the end of the day, if you're worth it, companies will want to spend money with you
Yeah.
because it are you a value add or not, right?
Mm.
And there's things that we aren't strong at that we're not great at, which is why we need team, right? This is what we're good at, and we're building a team around us that's good at the other things.
Yeah. Like I love audio. I love sound. We've worked with a sound guy.
Oh my gosh, he's
I
amazing.
literally just stand in awe.
Hmm.
And
He has a better understanding of video than most DPs,
yeah, for real.
but he's the audio guy.
Yeah. And I would just say like I've learned real quick, don't just do it because like it's not
'Cause you
the
can.
best for the job. You know,
Mhm.
like what's best. And so like all those little things. And again, and some of this is big scale, but bringing it back down to the individual shooter trying to make it in you know, in any world is just like yeah, stay humble, learn, get involved, be a part of those things. And when you find somebody better than you, instead of actually like, the butting head thing, like befriend them, learn. Like I so appreciate every person I've got to work with and has made me better because of that. So
And I think that, I mean, even on, I'll say this and be quiet because we need to cut this, but there have been sets you and I are working on where there's been a little bit of
yeah,
us like,
we're
I
both
know what
very
I'm
opinionated. I think
very
everybody.
pained, and we're both good. And that doesn't, I'm not like not arrogantly, but
Yeah.
we both get hired because we're good. But we've both, I don't know if it's a betterment of opinion or a difference of opinion so much as like we wanted to be the one doing that at the moment. And that sounds dumb or whatever, but it's true. Like there was who's running the camera, who's the DP, whatever. And there have been like, I can do this. And yeah, I think it's the faster we understood that, yes, we can both do this, but we are a team. That's when our company and that's when our work took off, right? At first, we've always joked around a lot. We've never really argued. But there was a little bit of that peacocking at first for
Mhm.
both of us because we were filling each other out, right? As a business partner, you're feeling like, well, this is what I bring to the table. This is what I don't bring to the table. When we both just realized, oh, we're good.
Well,
We're
and
better as
now
a
it's
team.
actually turned into, what do you think about this?
Mhm.
Looking at things. Next thing is like, oh, what if we did this a little bit? Oh, and now it's a collaboration, and you're
Right.
actually getting like the best of the best. And
If
when,
we hadn't gotten past that though, we wouldn't be in
no,
working together
yeah,
anymore, you know?
and that's what's again, it makes it fun. I mean, we just had a 10-minute laughing fit in the middle of our podcast. So here's yeah, again, man, I think that's what I would love to pass on to these young creatives getting into this. And man, I would also say like when you walk in that place, you will have opportunities, and that's what we've learned. And so that's cool.
All right. End of this one. See you on the next one. In a
Sure.
year and a half. No, we're gonna try to put these out more regularly. We don't really have a time or a whatever yet, but we're gonna try to put them out. We've been getting asked a ton.
Yeah.
When are you guys gonna start doing the podcast again? So
My
we
next
understand.
video, our next video, I got touch control for small HD for FX6. We're gonna do something with that.
Cool.
Sounds exciting. Maybe way overexposed, but